So good evening. Let us discuss the 14th May 2015 newspaper. Now, the first article is related to human and animal conflict and human and animal interaction with regard to the wildlife protection. So, if you observe that most of the time wildlife activists demand for the evacuation of the local communities living in the forests and they believe that this human-animal conflict is the major reason for the development of animosity between them. But recently, in the Gir National Forest, the number of lions has increased. So what was observed over there is the local tribe, that is Maldaris, they live in the vicinity of Gir Forest and they played a vital role in the protection and improvement of the numbers of Gir lions. So, what was so special happened over there? There was win-win situation where the increase in the population of the lion led to the decrease in the population of wild boars, nilgais, etc. So, this led to the protection of the crop of these particular Maldaris, tribal people. And added to that in written, these people are interested in protecting the animal. So it shows that so the communities, if they are given interest or if they are given a role in the protection of the animals, automatically the wildlife is going to increase in this country. The same thing in the case of Valparai in Tamil Nadu. So the elephants previously used to attack the people over there. There was a lot of human-animal conflict. So what was done over there is the early warning systems, the flashlights, whenever the animals crosses the boundary, if automatic flashlights etc. are installed, because of this the animal-human conflict was reduced considerably. Now if you see Forest Rights Act in India, it provides for right to conserve the forests in the native communities living in the forests. So, this appears to be a right step now with regard to the changing circumstances which we see. So, the habitat fragmentation, the fears of habitat fragmentation expressed by the wildlife conservationists, so appears to be withdrawing or appears to be losing its relevance with regard to this example. So, this is a good example to quote with regard to the wildlife protection. And next is, there are series of articles with regard to the Modi's China visit, and Hindu extensively covered these articles. So let us see them. So the first thing is, interpreting the behavior of the Modi towards China. So this is what is the article. And then Nirupama Rao, she wrote a beautiful article on what are the perspectives of India with regard to the China. And next is, I prepared a small mind map with regard to these articles today. And then, so the extracts from the Mao-Nehru interaction in good olden days, these are one of the important things the Hindu newspaper has brought about. And after that, the cultural centers between India and China, there is another article regarding to this. So these are the articles we need to see now. So, with regard to Nirupama Rao, so what it has been said is this, the India and China relationship is plagued with mistrust and ambivalence, and added to that there is a complexity of these relationships. One way there is an engagement, on the other way there is something called as mistrust. On the economic front there is engagement, on the political front there is a lot of mistrust which is existing. That is inch to miles. It means that India-China towards a millennium of exceptional synergy. So what it means? So it means though we are starting with a small step, there is a long way to go, there is a long road to move on. So in this case, the mistrust ambivalence has to be replaced with coherence and rationality. So these two countries gave the world Panchashil. So the countries which are able to provide for a base for the relationship, bilateral relationships, they also have to reinvent their own situation now. Now, in these circumstances, what we need to understand, in the existing scenario, any country, if it has to be respected, it has to develop itself first. So Mr. Deng, the modernizer of China, has clearly said that development is a hard, in China is a hard reality. Now, if you compare India and China, there is a huge gap of development, and China is much ahead than India. So, the same words given by Deng to China also applies to India. So, India has to take the developmental path to gain its respect on the international dais. And next is, India-China can redefine their relationship to be a win-win situation rather than a win-lose situation. It need not be a zero-sum game for these two countries. So in these circumstances, so India has something to learn from China. One is, China is very advanced with regard to the infrastructure, and next India can attract the investments from China where there is a huge surplus of the funds. And one forgotten area, that is the tourism. So that Buddhism as a religion, it is growing up in China. Or the young population, it is very much fascinated with Buddhism plus the yoga. So these are the two things India can explore its soft power related to. And added to that, there is an irritant. So with regard to the irritants, the trade deficit is the major irritant. Now, India, the trade deficit is unfavorable to India. So China has to allow the pharmaceutical exports and added to that the services exports from India. So the second thing is, so China has repeatedly asked for relaxation of the visa norms to India. So these visa norms, India already is almost agreed for visas, where China will be replaced as a country of concern for security. So it increases the flow of investments from China to India. On the negative side, what is another concern is, one is boundary issue. We already know that. So the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, he said that we have to solve this particular border problem in the present generation itself, and we cannot pass it on to the future generation. That's relatively a positive development. And on the next thing is China-Pakistan ties. So One Belt One Road initiative, it is bringing in all the neighbors of India in one or the other way a condition towards China. It means that the entire relationships or regional balance in South Asia is going to tilt in favor of China. In these circumstances, India also has launched its own project called as Mausam. So in this, we can see this One Belt One Road initiative of Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, as a counterbalance to the Obama's pivot to Asia or America's pivot to Asia. So in this context, the sphere of influence of India in the Indian Ocean and China getting a complete access to Indian Ocean, where China tried to create a new Silk Road signifying the Chinese entry into Indian Ocean, may create the problems to India at a later date. So that's why India is very much non-committal with regard to its joining of this One Belt One Road initiative. And one more thing is, China and India, they started cooperating with each other in reshaping the global financial architecture. India agreed to join the BRICS Bank. India also agreed to participate in Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank. And I think in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, so another bank is being planned, which India is also about to join. So it means there is some improvement which is happening on this front. Now, so let us try to understand this from here. So inch towards miles, what means India and China towards millennium of exceptional synergy. So where the positives are reflected with the green. Infrastructure and investment. So to promote the investments, we are going to liberalize the visa regimes. On the positive side, ancient cultural connections, especially the Buddhism. And next is connectivity. So the China has a definite is expecting a help of India or support of India with regard to Bangladesh, China, Myanmar and India link of its One Belt One Road initiative. And next is tourism is a very positive thing. Tourism, Buddhism, yoga and Bollywood. It is related to the soft diplomacy. And state-to-state contacts, if you remember, recently Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Mr. Chandrababu Naidu visited to China as a representative of India. It means that we can develop province-to-province contacts which can deepen subnational relations also in India. And added to that, the China is bringing in various Confucius centers and also China agreed to create cultural centers in Beijing and Bengaluru. These are the positive developments. So on the negative side, on the irritants, the China-Pakistan economic corridor to which India has already raised its objections, it goes through the Pak-occupied Kashmir and Afghanistan and Iran. So China, Pakistan and Afghanistan, there is a trilateral dialogue is going on, and in this, the relatively on the northwest frontier and West Asia, China is gaining its influence over India. Though it is not irritant, the power balance is shifting away from India, that's what we can say. Next is boundary issue, we all know that. OBR initiative, which in China is entering into the sphere of influence of India. And next is the huge trade deficit. So with regard to boundary, so there is during Manmohan Singh era, we signed a bilateral defense cooperation agreement. Now we want to increase it to the next level. So in this context, what are the suggestions given are? So one is the consultations has to increase on regional issues with China. China shall be made as a partner with regard to the various regional issues in South Asia, and China also shall be given a platform, especially on discussions such as Afghanistan. And next is disarmament issues, non-proliferation issues, military cooperation. All these can be the confidence building measures with China. And one more thing is international issues such as climate change. We can always have a cooperation with China. These are the various issues which are being discussed in this article. Now, the Mao and Nehru meet, what it has been said is this. So, initial days of India-China relationship, in the era of our founding fathers of both nations, they are very cordial. It was clearly said that though the countries may have differences, there is no need to quarrel with each other. Both the countries with a great civilizational strength, both being the largest countries and the largely populated countries in Asia. So, their particular development, their rise in the global agenda, that is going to determine the future of this globe and peace on this globe. That is what is the opinion expressed by both the leaders. And added to that, both the opinions, they got colluded on anti-imperialist and anti-colonial agenda. And one more thing is, Mao is also very clear about India's economic advancement. At the early days of 1950, India is much economically advanced when compared to China. So that is also expressed by the Mao in this particular article. So initially, the relations are in a good spirit. So, but however, after 8 years after this particular meeting, so China and India went to a war, which is which could have been avoided if proper steps were being taken. So that's what is the opinion expressed. And next is, so Chini, India and Sino, the cultural relations. So the cultural centers will be established because the China is, the three philosophies that run the China are, one is Buddhism, Confucianism and Taoism. These are the three things which are the major guiding principles of China. So, similarly, India can offer the Sanskrit, Ayurveda, Vivekananda, Yoga, etc. to China. So, to exchange these particular cultural issues and also to tie up deeply the cultural relations between these two nations, the cultural centers will be brought in between Beijing and Bengaluru. So they run like a universities. They have educational parks in them, which is first of its kind happening in the world. And next is there is an editorial which is related to the earthquake preparedness. Already I have discussed this in detail when an article came up on the Japan's preparedness related to the earthquakes. Let us see this, recollect these things. So Japan and quake preparedness. What we have discussed over here is the character of an earthquake. The first one is earthquake repeats itself, it means that it can, once it comes, there is a greater chance at the same place the earthquake can repeat. But it is of long duration. It means the existing generation might have passed away by the time earthquake repeats. So systematization of the knowledge is very important. And it is impossible to predict the time when the earthquake can come up. So this is what is the character of an earthquake. So in this context, so first thing what we need to do is the risk recognition and creation of awareness. So what is meant by risk recognition? So entire nation has to be mapped so that which area is prone to earthquake, it has to be clearly communicated to the people over there. So in this case, how an area is prone to earthquake, it has to be calculated based on the magnitude of the previous earthquakes, the occurrence frequency, plus to what extent the society is prepared to it. Based on this, the risk has to be evaluated. So along with, once the risk is evaluated, once the mapping of the entire country is done, then we have to prepare the people to the occurrence of the earthquakes. Then what we need to do over here? The first thing is risk recognition is done. The second is reduction in response time. Whenever earthquake comes up, especially if it originates in the same, the time required for the earthquake or that particular impulse to travel onto the ground or for the electronic signals to move onto the ground, the electronic signals moves much faster. That is the reason why if you can create a strong early warning system, you can buy considerable time in evacuating the people from the buildings. The second thing is real-time earthquake observation. And so this real-time earthquake observation in Japan, it runs under the senior minister. And the disaster education in the schools, that is drills, etc., which are conducted. Emergency, the protocols and standard operating procedures. Every person, including a small child, knows about that in Japan. And next is cost-effective quake-resistant building solution. So we have to provide tax incentives for the people who build the quake-resistant buildings. And wherever in public, private investments do not come, the public investments have actively been taken into that area. And finally, strong legal remedies. These are all the things which are being suggested for. Next is politicians lose space in articles. So what this means? Now, before the elections, we see that a huge number of ads comes up replicating the leaders of ruling party. So because of this, what is happening is government spending the public money to build the personality cult. So Supreme Court in a judgment on petitions filed by Common Cause, an NGO, what it has said is this: the government cannot spend and publish the photographs of the political leaders, ministers or prominent persons in government advertisements. The three people excluded are President of India, Prime Minister and Chief Justice of India. And it also kept a clause that these people, they have to give their opinion either to publish their name or not. It means that they are personally liable for that. And the third thing is, there was a committee to frame the guidelines which was appointed, that is the Madhava Menon Committee. And Madhava Menon Committee has given certain guidelines. In guidelines with that, the Supreme Court has recommended for the appointment of an ombudsman to see that the establishment is following these particular norms and guidelines or not. These are the things which are being discussed about. And next is Xi'an. This is a place, our ancient capital of China. It was, the Modi was received over here by the Xi Jinping. So, if you can observe over here, there are certain things you need to understand. It is the place where first emperor of China, Emperor Qin Shi Huang. So let me remember him as Emperor Qin. Let's not complicate it. So this person who has built the Great Wall of China is buried over here. And next is, it is the starting point for ancient Silk Route. And Huan Sang, the traveler to India, after completing of his Indian trip, he came to China in 650 to AD. So, and there are that's why it has got a very good, very much a big value over here. And next is the more than 7 lakh workers. They worked towards building an army of terracotta warriors in mausoleum which was built by Emperor Qin. So these are the things which are there. And next is, I'm not going to discuss these articles, but understand that. So Millennium Development Goals, you need to have a clear idea which are related to health, which are related to education. So all these Millennium Development Goals discussed over here are related to health. So mug up this target 4A. That is, under 5 mortality rate has to be reduced by 2/3. Target 5A, maternal mortality to be reduced by 3/4. 5B, universal access to reproductive health. So mug up all these things that because any question which comes in paper 2 which are related to health, you need to have a grip over the health targets. Next is e-waste. Previously there was a question related to e-waste. What are the components of it? So again, the low cost of dumping the e-waste in Asia and also in Africa. So they are becoming the destinations for this, or dump pads for this. That's why it is the toxic time bomb which is waiting for us. So what are the complications of the e-waste? Try to go through them. And next is Indian seismic and GNSS network. It showed its capabilities during the Nepal earthquake. Try to see earthquake tracking mechanism. Already the video length got extended. Let us try to keep it over here. And next is on economics. On Facebook, the instant articles will be posted. It means that the print media, the access of the news from print media to the readers, it will be through social media. So it means the social media is going to determine what news you are going to read tomorrow. That is one of the development which is going to happen. It means your opinion will be more and more shaped by the social media rather than the mainstream media over here. And next is why the Indian laboratories are not performing well. So in this case, recently, Scientific Advisory Council to the Prime Minister was abolished, and also the budgetary cuts were made to the research support, which are seen as the retrogressive steps, and the remaining thing is as usual the same. And next is RBI has supported for fiscal consolidation or recommended certain fiscal consolidation measures. What it said is the e-commerce is going to improve and the certain tax regimes are developed. It's going to add up to the revenue of the states. And also through the sale of the natural resources, few of the states are gaining the windfall profits, which have to be used for the long-term development of the state. And next is the GST. Once it comes, the origin-based indirect taxes will be changed to destination-based tax regime, which is going to improve the flexibility or buoyancy of the tax regime in the country. So these are all the things which he talked about. So these are the important articles today. So I know today I am a bit fast because I have to complete these articles. So bear with me. Thank you very much.